Take a moment for it to pop back up on here. Come on, audio. Not hearing a thing. Okay.
Yeah. We're good? All right.
All right.
Well, let's start all over again.
Yes.
Good day, everybody. We're going to be talking about new legislation, updates on current legislation in Congress, and also give you some interesting information about the USCIS data update when we come back in a second. Which one?
The middle one.
All right. I am Sam Shihab.
I'm Brian Burke.
And we're from the law firm of Sam Shihab and Associates. We apologize about this audio issue that we've had earlier, but really not much wasted. We were about to begin talking about the Relief Act. Brian?
Yeah. So, I don't know. This is like a sweetheart bill for me. It is a visa recapture bill that kind of seems to solve every painful thing for immigrants for me. So here are the main bullet points. So one, it removes, over the course of a couple years, the per-country limitations on employment-based green cards, meaning, the number one thing that causes, let's say European green cards to go faster and Indian green cards to go so slow. Awesome. It increases the per-country limitations for family-sponsored green cards from 7% to 15%. So that'll also prevent backlogs. But the cool thing that it does for me is it creates this giant pool. It basically, over the course of 5 years, it eliminates the backlogs. Basically, they make new visas available to cover the entire backlog of immigrant visas as it is today.
So is it increasing the number of green cards to be approved, the cap, the max,
Yes, under this backlog reduction provision. It basically says we're going to create a new pool of visas that is equal to the size of the present backlog, and then we're going to let those visas out over the course of 5 years.
So the Relief Act, which is introduced by Dick Durbin, who is a Democrat, in 2019.
Yeah, it's back again, yeah.
It is a common sense approach to a problem that needs an overhaul. Sometime when the car is breaking down every 5 minutes, you need to not fix it, you need to get a new car. And this is a tantamount to buying a new vehicle for immigration and not trying to kind of Band-Aid.
Yeah.
It just completely
It doesn't try funny tricks to eliminate the backlog. It says, here's the visas to eliminate the backlog. So
yeah, the per country limitation is a stupid idea. Get rid of it. The limitations on family green card is a dumb idea. Double it. And the wastage is a government incompetency, and we're gonna figure a pressure relief valve to retake it and apply it again.
Yeah, so the problem with this one is only, I did some looking to seeing who's supporting this. I'm only seeing Democratic names come up. In order to pass the bill, any sort of bill right now, you need some bipartisan support.
Well, I have another problem with it. It was introduced in 2019 and haven't passed.
Well, it was reintroduced in 2022, pretty recently.
I wonder why was it reintroduced? Do you think that he feels that there's support for it right now?
Well, I mean, there's a reason why. We've talked about this in the past, late last year. There's clearly support building for some sort of immigration reform. The last big one to come up was in the Build Back Better Act, which kind of makes a good segue to talking about the Build Back Better Act.
The Relief Act, so everybody remember, this is the Relief Act.
That was the Relief Act. So
perfect.
Sounds good. Really love that one. The question is that going to go anywhere? And here's my problem with it. Now, it kind of lives in the shadow of the Build Back Better Act, which Attorney Joe in our office, he says it's dead. I say it's kind of on life support. Now, Joe Manchin gave that famous thumbs down on Fox News saying, I can't vote for this. But, President Biden in his State of the Union address talked about it. And just as recently as a couple days ago, I have a letter here from Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, saying, on the reconciliation bill, Senate Democrats have, well, here's what they're doing on it, right? So basically, It sounds like there's some form of reconciliation bill, which is the kind of bill that the Build Back Better Act is/was out there. And from anything we're reading, that it seems like they're trying to get Joe Manchin to come back on board, give him something that addresses all the things he wants. Because his concerns, part of his concerns in giving that thumbs down to Build Back Better was cost and inflation. And the things that they mentioned that they're working on here are rising cost of energy, prescription drugs and healthcare, rising cost of a family. That is what I would call Joe Manchin bait to try to get him back on board or something that he can vote for. The problem is what we don't know, is going to be in here is immigration. This has no comments on immigration, and the last version of the bill that had immigration on it was given the thumbs down.
But there's no controversy.
Yeah, it's not the controversial point.
Yeah, well, clearly on the illegal immigration there is a problem.
Sure, yes.
So that's out. On the legal immigration, unless somebody comes out with a problem, but there's nothing negative, so it should not be removed.
I can't help but think that some nice, young legislative aide is going to put that stuff back in the next version of the bill. Just we haven't seen it yet. But
so in summary, there is a debate in our office, only in our office, on whether or not this wonderful legislation that called the Relief Act, it has any chance because it is really sits to a backseat to the Build Better Back.
When that's a single issue bill, the Relief Act, it's fix the visa backlog. Whereas politicians love to wrap things up in a greater package, and if that's going to be addressed in a comprehensive, Build Back Better or some sort of successor to that, let's wait for that. And I think that is, sort of a gray cloud that sort of hangs over, the whole Democratic congressional agenda right now. It's basically that's what they want to get done, and anything that's a component part of that, why do it now when we can do the big, beefy, the comprehensive thing?
So, thumbs down or thumbs up on it? Is it going to go through or not?
I don't know. We don't know. So something maybe. But we don't know what that's going to look like. But I don't consider it entirely dead, but what it comes back as is anybody's guess at this point.
What about the Build Back Better Act?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were referring to the Build Back Better Act. Yeah. I consider relief to be something, if something to sit on the back burner, a last ditch sort of thing. Build Back Better Act, that's where I think, we might see something there. It's just I have no clue what it's going to be. We seem to think that both agree that immigration has to be in there because it's so uncontroversial. It seems that everybody can get behind it. It's just when's it coming? Are they going to be stuck on this roadblock, this Joe Manchin-shaped roadblock forever? I don't know.
Good point. Healthcare Workforce Resilience Act. What a difficult name.
Yeah, so maybe not of direct interest to our audience. We know a lot of our clients working as in engineering or information technology, STEM fields. I guess doctors could be considered a STEM field. However, this is a bill that basically makes visas available for nurses and physicians, right? And it's only gonna be available until 90 days after the COVID emergency declaration is done, so it maybe has a limited shelf life. However, ultimately, those visas that are available for those nurses and doctors aren't going to be of the same pool that are your typical EB1, EB2, EB3 are. What does that mean? It means, in theory, if this thing goes through, and there seems like there's a lot of support for it, it could make more visas available for those employment. If you take people out of the pool, there's more space for the others that are left, I guess is to carry the metaphor to the end.
Right, but it looks like it's not also being pushed. There's no really...
It has some bipartisan support, and I see a quote, from the president himself saying he's anxious to get that passed. So I thought that's one that kind of has a chance of going forward.
Okay, America Competes Act.
America Competes Act. This is a great big sort of bill to push STEM everything, entrepreneurs and high-tech stuff in the United States, right? And America Competes Act passed the House back in February, and there's a similar bill which kind of has a similar stuff on it that was passed by the Senate that's called the United States Innovation and Competition Act in July of 2021. So they're at a point where they can reconcile these bills together and start to put something together that they can get passed. The highlights of it, there's a direct path for permanent residence for PhD graduates from a U.S. institution in a STEM field. So if anybody,
very narrow.
Yeah, if anybody feels like going back to get their PhD, you might be able to knock a bunch of time off your green card, obviously. So there's that. There's also,
so when you say direct path to permanent residency, that means you get a PhD, they hand you a green card?
you skip the line. You file it. You go through the administrative processing, Sam. You file an application.
I mean, you need an employer, you need a labor certification, or we don't know.
I don't have to have that information in front of me, but I don't. Yeah.
So maybe remove the numerical limitations on those.
Yeah.
Maybe create a different category or something.
Yeah.
Interesting. Direct path.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to know what that means.
Yeah.
But obviously the devil is in the detail. Probably they haven't gotten to that point yet.
Yeah. So one thing, on the legislative front, and we were talking mostly about visa recapture bills, kind of tangentially related to legislation, premium processing. So this is a law that's already passed. It's the law that would allow expand premium processing for a bunch of different categories. Mm-hmm. And the law has been passed, and what we're waiting on right now is the regulations. And this is going to allow premium processing for I-539s, I-765s, as well as EB-1, a couple different types of green card applications. And there's a regulation that we're going to expect to see published very soon. So anybody out there who is having that stressful thing going on where you're waiting to get your H-4 EAD, for example, well, great. You might have premium processing available to you to resolve that issue. However, I can't help but note the costs. For an I-539, $1,750. For an I-765, $1,500. And they come with a 30-day timeline on them, Sam.
And the regulations will be published within the next 60 days.
Yeah, so
there's
that
absolutely no rationale between the fee and the cost. And that's where they're going to get hammered when they publish it, because they're gouging people.
Yeah.
This is simply gouging exercise.
Yeah.
On a governmental level.
That's more than, say, premium processing for an H-1B or an I-140 on all said done.
Average time to process a work authorization is probably 30 minutes.
Yeah.
$1,500 for 30 minutes worth of work is downright theft.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything like this before.
Yeah.
So that's a concern, but we should expect it within the next 60 days.
Yeah, well, that was from when it was published. That was published at least like 30 days ago, so we're going to be seeing something very soon, I think.
Now, I understand premium processing for EB-1, multinational manager and executives, or national interest waiver, EB-2.
Well, those are really complex cases.
For $2,500 and 45 days, I understand.
The last EB-1 I sent out was about, yay high, a ream and a half of paper.
And there's a lot of work, and there's a lot of information to check and confirm. I mean, I still think it's $2,500 is high, but the EAD for $1,500 shocks me. I mean, it's a sticker shock of a serious level.
Yeah.
I don't see how that is justifiable.
Yeah.
There's no. I mean, basically, the government must collect the fees at their cost. They should not. This is almost like taxation.
Well, yeah, I mean, the number one, we're America. We have your American flag in the background. Give us, you're tired and you're weak, you're hungry, you're poor. Bring us immigrants, and we're going to soak them for as much money as we can.
Well, I'm not sure it's even legal. I mean, it's not the morality; it's the legality. I mean, you charge. They are mandated to charge to cover their cost.
Yeah.
I don't see, unless they're planning on flying Learjets and driving Rolls Royces or something to cover the $1,500.
Well, we agree that these fees are exorbitant and it's government extortion. So we're talking about government as a bad actor, Sam. I think that makes a good segue into the USCIS data.
You charge an H-1B, if you're an employer and you charge an H-1B $1,500 for something, give me this, I'll charge you $1,500. They'll shut you down.
Yeah.
And the government is basically charging people, planning on charging people ridiculous amount of money for work that takes very little.
Yeah.
Shocking. But that's good information, Brian. Thank you. So, all right. So,
well, we talked about visa recapture.
The Meng Amendment, somebody asked last time, just look at that. Really, there's no update on the Meng Amendment. It's been very inactive.
Yeah.
And again, it sits third seat Not many people are in love with it. To many other legislations, and the Build Back Better Act obviously sits on the front for right now, really holding everything back.
Yeah, but so we talked about all these big, important visa recapture bills and things that might make more green cards available. And well, I guess we're kind of segueing into why it's important, because we need more green cards to be available to people to eliminate the backlog in some way, because USCIS is setting themselves up for another absolute failure of green card processing and ultimately looking at massive visa wastage this year. Sam.
Yes, it's very disappointing. So, Brian, share with us some of these USCIS processing data that we have collected.
So back in sometime mid-January, we did a nice big breakdown of all the USCIS green card processing data for all of fiscal year 2021, showing basically how they wasted away all of those green cards. How many did they lose, Sam? I think it was
80,000.
So was it 80,000 last year?
Wasted up, yeah. 80,000. Well, there's debate between somewhere between 65,000 to 80,000, whoever you want to believe.
Yeah, and we looked at the statistics and we saw how they did it. For the first 3 quarters of the last fiscal year, they were slow and did nothing, and then they made, as government as they do, in the very last quarter of the fiscal year, they went ahead and went crazy and approved way more green cards in the last quarter than they did in the prior 3.
And you got a nice little chart too.
Yeah, so let's check out our chart. And this is going to be basically an updated version of that chart. There it is.
So that blue line represents what happened last year.
Well, this blue, so here's what we got. We got quarter 1, fiscal year 2021, right, where they approved a little bit less than 30,000 green cards. Got Q2 fiscal year 2021, where they got a little bit less than 20,000 in.
They even did worse.
Yes.
They just slowed down even more.
Up until Q3,
30,000.
Exactly. And then Q4, they just absolutely blew it out of the water. I believe it's 86,000 is the number they got in Q4 fiscal year 2021.
Thus approving 180,000 green cards in 2021 and wasting about 80,000 approximately, because the wastage plus the amount, the visa numbers that we have were 262,000.
Yeah.
So they wasted last year 80,000 green cards.
So now I brought it back to us for a minute, but we were very anxious. I've been refreshing, the USCIS statistics page like a madman for the last couple of weeks, wanting to see what they were going to do for Q1 fiscal year 2022, whether or not they were doing a good job of.
And we thought they were doing a good job.
Well, yeah, all the data. You went to that green card interview, and that officer seemed gung ho. I was getting calls from USCIS officers at my desk, and there's an interfiling policy they put out there. Everything points to them wanting to approve green cards. And let's go back to the punchline here. In Q1 of fiscal year 2022, they did about 35,000 green card approvals, employment-based green card approvals at USCIS.
And we superimposed it at X.
Right here, yeah.
You see that X over the first quarter of 2021. That compares this quarter, 2022, first quarter 2022 to first quarter 2021. And as you can see, the same very incompetent amount of visas being processed. So it's 33,000 green cards they processed, and there's 292,000 green cards available to
I must note, Sam, I didn't include Department of State data in here. However, they only approve a handful of green cards at the employment-based green cards at the Department of State.
Yeah. So what they need, the number they need to have hit to take a 25% bite out of the 292,000 is 73,000.
Yeah.
So they only approved 33,000 green cards.
As evidenced by here in Q4 fiscal year 2021, they were capable of doing that.
Well, yeah, of course they're capable of doing that. They have to do the job. So they have met only 46% of what they're supposed to have approved in quarter number 1 to meet a straight line or a,
Take 25% chunks out of the visas available each year such that they make sure that they issue them all.
So
each quarter, excuse me.
So we only have a dot on the curve for 2021.
2022, but yeah.
1 dot.
Right here.
But if or on the other side, that X.
Yeah, right over here. Here's
so
that number
trying to compare. So if we take that dot and project that line
Yeah.
they're going to waste more green cards this year than last year. Based on my extrapolation, they're going to waste 86,000 green cards if they drop the same percentage and increase the same percentage as last year. And just remember, we had 262,000 green cards last year, which counts the spillage, the overflow. We have 292,000 this year, so they are on par, at least by the first quarter, to waste more green cards this year.
Yeah,
Brian.
I have another chart here, Sam, which kind of illustrates the same issue. You know, there's 292,000. That's what they have available, and this is what they've used so far.
And that's not counting the State Department.
Yeah.
And we don't have that, but let's assume it does a little bit more.
It's like in the, measured in, you know, like I wouldn't
so
know
there
more
may
than
be
1,000.
yeah. So if you do that, maybe it's 80,000 instead of 86,000 wasted, which is exactly the same number of wastage. So together between last year and this year, unless something is done about it, we may have wasted 160,000 employment-based green cards.
Yeah, well, yes. So this is the data we have right now, Sam. One of the things we were talking about here internally is what about the interfiling policy? Is that going to help them move cases?
Haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Have you?
No, we're not seeing. You know, we have sent out plenty of interfiling requests, and we haven't seen a massive influx of approvals. You know, Sam, I want to just go back to that chart right quick, because you know. Obviously, we talked about, you know, we did a lot of comparing as to where they were. What's really driving me mad is really where they were just a quarter ago. You know, I don't think it's you know, comparing Q1 to Q1. I don't see the sense of it, Sam. I got to compare Q1 to Q4.
So we are right now. We do not have the second quarter.
Yeah,
When we saw the difference, it really was. We've been observing it in the second quarter. Yeah. Because obviously the data for the second quarter is not out. So what we're seeing, our experience of this rushing and trying to approve, we are experiencing it during the second quarter, which the data is not out yet.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that we don't see that drop in the line like the 2021, and I'm hoping that we maybe see a line moving in the upward direction in the next second quarter, I hope.
Yeah, so I mean, in order to get this approved, you said it was, how many do they need to do for the rest of the year? Is about 80,000 per each quarter in order to use them all?
73,000 if they have met. But now it's more because there is about another 50,000 that you have to divide by 4.
Yeah, so ultimately, they have to operate at this capacity, this 86,000 capacity, pretty much for the rest of the year.
Over 80,000 a quarter.
Yeah. And they've, you know, we were very hopeful, and what they've shown us right here is, you know, they're not capable of doing that right now.
Yeah, over 80,000 a quarter to meet it, and obviously, coming out of the box, only 33,000. That's pretty disappointing. So this is frustrating. We should raise a stink about it now. I think the earlier, the better. So
you raise a stink by contacting your congressperson, pretty much. Is that your best way to do it?
I think so. I mean, it's a process of. Every time we contact congressmen, you're shocked how deaf they are to people's legitimate complaints.
Well, I mean, so I guess, you know, campaigns, I mean, Congress is trying to work on it, right? We talked about the first half of this presentation, you know, 4 different, or at least 2 different major bills that have visa recapture provisions, and they can't get them done. Yeah. You know, I mean, it seems like what's the point of contacting Congress if they don't they have it on their plate, they're just not eating it, I guess, to use a metaphor.
Yes. And obviously they have a USCIS director who is of an immigrant background. They have a DHS director who has an immigrant background. Both are lawyers. Both were hailed as very sensitive to immigrants. But they inherited a mess. Yeah. And the first quarter is really the most difficult quarter to you cannot turn it that quick. In their defense. So we're seeing the positive in the second quarter. Now, you can come back to me in 3 months and tell me, Sam, look at these numbers.
Sam, you're going to make me pull up the chart again. What turn? It's a downward turn, sir. It's, you know, they were there. they were in control of the
Yeah,
president.
but you cannot turn it around. So they are on October 1st.
Yeah.
They were there, right?
Yeah, but they were. This is fiscal year 2021. This is through October 2021. This is the president administration. They got 86,000 approved.
Right.
But they just didn't do it here. And anything, I mean, they had positive manic energy that was helping them get cases approved here. And everybody, after the wastage occurred, they patted themselves on the back and said, we did the best we could, and totally forgot about it in Q1. And this is driving me mad, Sam, clearly.
The biggest problem is the attitude in reviewing these cases. I mean, you must approve these cases by the preponderance of the evidence.
Yeah, 51%. More likely than not that the case should be approved, you approve the case. That's the immigration standard.
So what that means is if the case is 1% more than 50% approvable, you must approve the case.
1%, just a fraction of a percent above 50%. Right?
Yeah, 0.0001 more than 50%. Then you approve the case. What this administration and prior USCIS for years, they've used a different practical standard. They've used almost preponderance of the evidence.
I was shocked.
Clear and convincing. Preponderance of the evidence, which is like 90%.
Yeah, I was shocked the first time I looked up what the writing in immigration up here, what the standard of evidence is supposed to be a preponderance, which is a pretty low standard. And I was shocked to find that was that, because that's not the way the government operates, in my experience.
They want the case to be approvable, 90+% to approve it. And the law says if the case is 51% approvable, you should approve it. Yeah. They need to go back. And this is what they've done in the fourth quarter. I'm pointing at the graph in front of me. Of course, you guys don't see it.
There's the graph in front of you.
In the fourth quarter, when they approved that many cases, they used the right standard, the preponderance of the evidence. If the case looks approvable, smells approvable, let it go, man. Approve it.
Yeah, I'm trying to justify this number. I just can't do it. I mean, these are cases presumably. I know a lot of people who filed in October 2020 got their green cards in Q4, and they have friends who filed at the same time, and they're here in Q1, wondering, how did you process 50,000 less cases in Q1 versus Q4? 50,000 cases, Sam? It's insane. Did everybody take a vacation?
But I'm not seeing adjustment to our fees.
Very few.
So they're just not processing. They're just not working on cases.
I feel like I'm not being useful here, Sam. I'm just really angry about this. We looked at these numbers first time, last week, because they were just, I think they were just issued last week, and we had a nice big shout about it, and it's coming right back for me here. Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, so this is what we have today on the processing time. Unfortunately, discouraging information, but I'm hopeful that the second quarter will be more positive. And March is upon us. Let's get some legislation passed. We will be back to answer your questions. All right,
we are back.
Let's answer the first questions here.
Well, I'm going to answer the first couple of comments and thank everybody for very quickly pointing out that the audio was not working, as well as to Joe, who came in the door and said, "Hey guys, the audio's not working."
Good. He's checking on us, which is really important.
Yeah, darn it, Sam, we tested this several times. We tested before we go live every time, but you guys don't care about that. We'll get straight to the questions. So a question from Sweet Salad. The EB5 reauthorization seems to take effect in 60 days. Will it eat into the 280K family base spillover? If yes, how much? Explain the math, timelines, immediate retrogression effects on EB2, if any.
So when visas overflow from EB5 back to the first preference and then down to the second preference, now and the China is so backlogged, but also they're subject to the numerical limitations. So that's an excellent question. I don't have the numbers, but obviously we were worried about that.
We talked about it last week.
Last week about the impact on the potential retrogression when they pass the EB5. But that's an excellent question on timeline. So we'll dig deep into that. Those are great questions. Who asked that
That's
question?
our friend
Sweet Seller.
Sweet Seller.
And give you some more in-depth look at it. How much it's going to eat from the 280,000 to the extent that we can, obviously. But yeah, that's a great question. And love to be able to give you an answer today, but I don't have the numbers.
Yeah. Here's a great question from Anupam. So my employer is going to change its name soon. Will they need to amend my approved H-1B and I-140? Simple answer for me. No. With an asterisk, I would just say make sure it is truly a simple name change, and that's really up for the employer to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, most of the time a name change is more than a name change.
Yeah, that's true.
And the question is the tax ID number. So when you get your payroll checks, I think the employer tax ID number is right there on the paycheck, right? Or not?
No, I don't think so. Maybe on W-2s.
On the W-2s, right?
I don't think so. No,
so I
maybe
think
not.
ask the simple question: would the tax ID number will change? Just ask that question, just like an innocent question, because if they said no, it's not changing, more than likely you're okay.
Yeah.
90+% you're okay. If they say, oh yeah, we have a new tax ID number now, more than likely there is a significant issue. Now, if the tax ID has changed, let's answer that's if the tax ID have changed with the name change, which means a reorganization of sorts, or one company buying another company, or something that's happening beyond a name change. Then you need to do something called successor in interest on the I-140?
Yes, and that's basically a special I-140 filing where you tell the government, hey, our company's been bought, but this new company is essentially taking on all the immigration liabilities of the old one, and thereby you can approve a new I-140 under that new company name and tax ID.
Yes, and if the change in name consumes all obligations of the prior company, assuming a change in name and a change in tax ID and a reorganization, then there is legislation built into the H-1B laws that may not require to do an H-1B amendment.
Yeah, I guess the bottom line I'm thinking about is if your employer is represented by good immigration counsel, this is something that we've handled 4 or 5 times a year. Probably about 4 times a year, somebody changes something, and what are the immigration impacts? They usually get, pretty comprehensive advice. Here's all my people with a visa status. What happens to them when the company changes and reorganizes? And that's something we do.
The companies too. What I've noticed, and this is just very broad statement, not specific to anybody or any company or any entity, but what I found out is the bigger the company, the less they pay attention to this.
Yeah.
The smaller the company, the more they pay attention to it. So good luck.
Yeah. Well, sometimes there's big, corporate lawyers handling major transactions, and they don't think about, the individual employees, especially those who are immigrants.
Or don't care.
Yeah. My saying is the immigration lawyers, they're always the last lawyer to know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So sounds hopefully that we're giving you some direction on that one. So Raju Keladindi. H-1B is valid until 2022. Can I travel to my home country and enter the U.S. using EB-3 advanced parole while H-1B renewal is pending?
So yes, it brings up some interesting questions as to what your status will be when you come back. You will come back using that AP. You're going to be a parolee entering the United States. And they're going to presumably approve that H-1B, and they're probably going to do it with an I-94. And there's a good argument to be made you'll be back on H-1B status when they approve that H-1B, assuming they approve that H-1B after you re-enter the country. There's all sorts of interesting timing questions, I guess, related to this, isn't there, Sam?
Well, for me, I'm breaking down the question to multi-parts. Of course, the silliest one is, can I travel to my home country? You can travel to your home country at any time, Raju. Traveling out of the U.S. requires no visa in the U.S.
That's the old immigration lawyer's joke. It's can I travel? Yes. Can you come back? Is the really
the question is, can you come back? Yeah. Well, that's the second part. And enter into the U.S. using EB-3 advanced parole. The answer is yes. You can enter the U.S. using EB-3 advanced parole. And the answer is while your H-1B is being renewed, there is absolutely no impact on the renewal of your H-1B. Now, when you leave and re-enter, it is possible that USCIS may just simply, because they have the data, issue an I-797 without an I-94.
That's true. They can do that. They know when you travel.
Yes, and then that puts you in a situation where you have to file another H-1B. If they haven't noticed that you're departed and re-entered, and they issued an H-1B approval with an I-94, it's my position that that I-94 is good, pursuant to that 25-year-old memo. Right?
Yeah. You get an H-1B extension after you return to the United States as a parolee. Congratulations, you're on H-1B status.
If they don't give you the I-94, however, then you need to file a new H-1B extension requesting an I-94 pursuant to that memo.
Sam, Raju asked a very simple question. We're giving the world's most complex answer. Yes, and give your employer your I-94 when they come in, so they can help you figure out, make sure their I-9 compliance is on top of things.
I think Raju likes my answer.
I like your answer too. It's a fun answer. We're just a bunch of lawyers giving the lawyer answers, though.
All right, let's go to the next one.
Let's go with what Srinivas has here. Share predictions for EB2 India filing and final action date for April 2022 visa bulletin and any impact from the EB5 reauthorization. Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's very interesting to see.
It was put on the radar that a retrogression would happen. But geez, the EB2 has been aggressive. The EB2 has been aggressive, and anything we've seen in the final action dates seems to say, we're moving forward. Give us, we're approving cases. My
prediction, I think last time we talked, you said it's going to move 3 months. I said it's going to move 1 month. I think probably the EB5 is not going to affect this coming visa bulletin, in my opinion. It probably will affect the following one because it will be in effect in a couple months. So there's no point for them to hold back or retrogress right now, in my opinion. So no change. We think movement is very moderate on the EB2, 2 to 3 months. No movement in the EB3. We agreed on that last time.
It just doesn't seem possible.
And I don't think the EB5 approval will affect this coming visa bulletin.
Which is going to be coming very soon, the visa bulletin. It's already, March 14th today, so it's imminent.
Yeah.
So it's a sort of a follow-up on that question from Raju. It's, can I later switch back to EB2? It's so if you're talking about doing an interfiling, you can.
Well, he has to get back on
You're talking about filing a second adjustment status, it seems. I'm talking about filing an interfiling. You don't have to be in status. You can become
switchback. So switchback needs to be defined.
Yeah. So it depends on what you're doing, Raju. If you're trying to do a second adjustment of status filing, you have to be in valid non-immigrant status like H-1B or L or your favorite one. If you're trying to do an interfiling, you're not required to be in status, and that's how you get on EB2 that way, in the EB2 category that way.
So the answer is possible.
Yeah.
Depending.
Yeah. Oh, I realize it says EB3 AP while the EB2 I-485 is pending. So, but does that really?
Travel to home country and enter U.S. using EB3 while the EB2 I-485.
I think that's the question.
That's an interesting question. But he is on H-1B.
Well.
So when he left, he left the country on H-1B.
Yeah.
So he has an H-1B. So there's no abandonment of the EB2 I-485.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And then re-entering on advanced parole, I'm assuming you have an EB2 I-485 advanced parole as well.
He's saying, he's wanting to use the EB3-based AP.
But that would make me a lot more comfortable if he has also an approved advanced parole for EB2.
Yeah.
Now, if he doesn't have one, that's unlikely, or he hasn't received it. Does that change things for you, Brian?
EB2 advanced parole? Well, if you leave while you're waiting on EB2 AP,
he has an H-1B.
But they're going to deny that EB2 advanced. There's a reasonable chance they're going to deny that advanced parole when he travels.
Okay. Yeah. But does it affect the adjustment status itself, the EB2 adjustment status?
No.
Because he is on H-1B.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, let's keep on moving onward. So can a lawsuit be filed for delays in I-485 processing? So, yes. Last year, a lawyer in Mississippi was successful in securing visa number for his clients before retrogression and wastage of green card numbers. Sam, we were talking about what can you do. You can contact your congressperson, but you can also sue the government on this issue.
So there was a major lawsuit for delays last year. Looks like it got dismissed. A class action lawsuit. I think recently got dismissed.
That one?
I believe so.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Well, I'm not going to mention it because we don't. I don't have the information in front of me.
Ravi's the thing is says that seemed to secure the visa numbers for people before the retrogression. Maybe
well, it all depends. It all depends on a lot of factors. I mean, suing is not an inexpensive process. I don't discourage people from suing, but as long as you're aware of the costs involved, and also you have a reasonable chance. Success.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
But can you sue 100%? Yes.
Yeah.
Good for the Mississippi attorney who was able to secure visa number for his client before retrogression and wastes a green card number. That's fantastic. But I know there's others that tried it and also were not successful because the slowing and the wastage. I mean, when you waste it, you waste it. Now, can you do a writ of mandamus and force the government to act? You can try it, absolutely. We can certainly help you with it, or you can find an attorney to help you with it, but it's not a guaranteed path.
So here we are going to keep on moving on. So Srinivas Kalyan B. My EB2 India priority date is November 2013. Please kindly share your predictions on EB2 India final and final action date for April 22 visa bulletin. So we kind of already hit upon this. Basically,
yes.
You don't think it's going to hit until the next visa bulletin, and the visa bulletin for it's forthcoming.
Yes.
I think it's Meng MENG's amendment, but as we discussed, all those other sort of immigration plans are all sort of living in the shadow of maybe they're going to get back together and do something on reconciliation as part of the president's big plan. Yeah. So let's see what we got here. Can I file my own EB2 I-45 application for myself and dependents without 4 I-45J?
It will be incomplete, and they may take it under the current environment.
But ultimately,
the question.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Brian.
You're going to need that I-45J eventually. You need to have somebody to say they have an offer.
But he wants to probably take advantage of the advanced parole. Maybe my question is bigger one. I mean, not a technical one. Why are you unable to get an I-45J now? That's the question I have. We need to kind of get to the core of the problem and address it. Because if your employer is not supporting the I-45J,
your employer is not supporting your green card.
And that's a problem. Bigger problem is wasting your time and money. And also, if your employer told you, I'm not going to do an I-45J, and you filed the adjustment status, you've signed things under oath that there is a true bona fide offer of employment that can be very risky for your future to do something like this. So for me, it's a bigger question.
Yeah.
Can you send it and throw in a fee and get an RFE later? You can. I don't advise it until we answer those questions.
Until you resolve that bottom of the barrel problem, when's the supplement J going to come?
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's the way I look at it. Relief Act.
Yeah, about the Relief Act from Karthik. Relief Act has no chance to pass with no bipartisan support without Republican. Wouldn't support any increase in visa. When Eagle Act passed by both the House and Senate, Durbin put a hold and delayed it.
Karthik. Republicans historically have favored employment immigration.
Yeah.
More than or equally as Democrats. The problem with it is it's sponsored by Democrats. That taints it. So in a roundabout way, I'm agreeing with you, but it's not because they don't support increasing the numbers. I don't think Republicans have any problem increasing the numbers.
Well, he points out that the Eagle Act was held up by Durbin himself, the purveyor of this act. And I guess the point is there anything such thing as bipartisanship anymore?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, not in the current environment.
Yeah. And that's the devilish little detail we're dealing with right now.
Absolutely.
So from Ram Prasad, I'm on H4 and got my green card EAD last week, but I-140 hasn't been approved yet. Does filling out I-9 onboarding move to green card EAD from H4 in my case?
No. So let's review this one.
Move to green card from EAD to H4.
No, an I-9 is a document the employer files telling the government that he has confirmed that somebody's authorized to work in the U.S. That's all what it does. It doesn't change status. And that's, I think, you're thinking, does filing it out and onboarding move the green card? So if you are on an H-4 and you got my green card EAD last week, and the only authorization you have is the green card EAD, okay? If the only work authorization you have is the green card EAD, and you don't have an H-4 EAD, the active working gets you into the green card EAD. You can come in
so
in the
you're drawing
morning.
the distinction. There's I-9 is for the employer's purposes, and there's what you're doing with your documents,
What you're
actually using. Yeah.
Because a lot of time I-9 can be filled out before the employment begin date, which is not recommended, but the employers do it. So you go in on Monday morning, you complete the I-9, and you sign it, and you begin employment 3 days later, supposedly. On the following day, you change your mind, and you tell the employer, I'm not going to work, I've changed my mind, I want to stay on my H-4, and you don't work. So you have a situation where the I-9 is completed and signed by you, but you're still on H-4.
Yeah.
So what gets you on green card EAD? That first day you walk in, let's say at 8 o'clock, if you check in at 8 o'clock, it's that time.
When work begins, and you're using that, and the only thing you have to work with is that green card EAD, no H-4 EAD. Congratulations, you have your green card EAD.
Yes.
And there's no alarm that goes off in a government office somewhere. That's the point to make. You know, the government doesn't know until they ask about it, and you have to be honest with them.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Hopefully that helps.
Yeah. Let me see. The America Competes Act, also covers masters in STEM in a critical industry. Yeah.
Thanks, Karthik, for the additional information, and we encourage everybody to chime in and add to what we have. This show is for you guys, and it helps us as well. Thank you.
There's a follow-up of Karthik on the Mang amendment dead on this bill already passed with no recapture as part of it. I don't recall seeing the omnibus. This is a part of the DHS bill, but
I don't think it has passed. I think it was proposed, but I don't think it has passed.
Yeah.
But we will check on that.
Yeah.
But I don't think it went anywhere. But we will check on that because otherwise we would have been. I mean, that's a change in the law. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
No change in the law happened. Yeah. It was part of the. It was part of the USCIS.
It was part of the DHS greater.
or DHS exactly. But that never happened, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
But we will confirm it for you.
Yeah. To be fair to USCIS, do we know if some other categories of visa processing were delayed in Q4 21 as a result of the processing 87K green cards in that quarter? With simplified processing, things should move more rapidly.
Well, I agree with you, but I'm not sure you will start by saying to be fair to USCIS. I think we're very fair to USCIS when we say we're extremely disappointed that they can actually approve 80,000 cases and they're only approved 30,000. Now, I have no information that they've delayed other cases.
Yeah. You know, Sam, looking at this chart, see the cynical, I'm going to put it back up again. The cynical version of myself wonders, okay, so quarter one they did okay. I think, a bunch of summer vacations in there, slowing down productivity, and Q1 fiscal year 2022, that's October, November, December. Thanksgiving and Christmas, everybody's less productive.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's somewhere between close to 1 million green card backlog.
Yeah, something. Yeah.
And they're wasting 80,000 a pop a year. That is inexcusable.
Well, I mean,
and we're paying for it. I mean, we're paying for it. They need to hire people and train people. It is the utmost mismanagement of resources I've ever seen.
I'm going to be fair to USCIS for just half a second and say, well, we are in extraordinary times. They never expected to have that many green cards available.
I have been fair to USCIS all along, Brian.
Yeah. Be a little.
That's my view on it.
Yeah. So from Kotran, so question number 1 might have been skipped. Get it in the comments now, and we'll go ahead and get it. When I start going through these questions, I start from the first one I see in my list. But if you get it in super early, we might not get it on our list.
Please drop it one more time, and I will we'll look for it for you.
Well, maybe here it is right here. So, any predictions for EB2, EB3 getting current anytime sooner for July 2014?
I don't think it's July 2014.
I mean, so EB2 India
15,
is
yeah.
in May of 2013, so that's more than a year off. And the talk we have right now is potential retrogression for EB2. We'd be happy if it stayed in one spot and didn't retrogress at all. And the visa bulletin doesn't move it in a linear way. So I guess we're not really looking forward to forward movement until what? October then, Sam?
Unless new legislation come in.
One thing I got to mention, Sam, about visa availability in October. We talked about the visa rollover from the family categories into this year. One thing we got to go back and mention again is I looked at the Department of State visa issuance data, how they're doing for family-based visas. They're kind of mostly back on track, issuing 35,000, average of about 35,000 visas a month at the consulates abroad, meaning it doesn't seem likely that they're going to have a great big rollover.
Unless they have that dip again, like the USCIS did. So we got to look at the numbers again. We only look at one dot.
Well, the big. I looked at the last couple months of Department of State visa processing data, and they seem to be be mostly back up to speed, and they don't have the COVID's died down. And when the COVID's died down and they're back to normal function, it means they're issuing immigrant visas to people at the consulate, meaning that's where most of the family visas get used up. And that means they're not going to be available for rollover. That's why all the stuff about all these recapture laws and the fact that they're doing such a poor job now of getting cases approved matters so much, because we may not have a visa rollover from the family category next year. Yeah.
Good point.
So, can we leave after interfiling within a month, but I-45 has been pending for 19 months now? So, leave after interfiling, what does leave after interfiling mean? Does that mean leave your employer?
I think so. Can I leave after, within a month, but I-45 has been pending
do we want to talk about intent, Sam?
Hold on a second, Brian.
Okay.
But this is after 1 month. What does that mean?
It sounds like leave your, Okay, so
within a month, but I-45 has been pending for 19 months now.
So maybe it's talk about leaving the employer that you interfiled to.
Filed the original I-485 19 months ago.
Yeah.
Did an interfiling last month,
Now
and now
you-
he's saying, "Oh, I got to get out of here. This is not working out." No, you can't.
The interfiling restarts the 180-day portability
Yeah.
time frame. So
Yeah.
the answer is no. No matter how long your adjustment's been pending 8 years, if you do a interfiling, you restart the 180-day.
I'm going to add to this. I'm sorry because I think he can benefit from a little bit more discussion on this.
Yeah.
Now, let's assume his employer is out of business or he doesn't want him and let him go. And now after 1 month, okay, he interfiled, but there's no job. And he finds another job. And he has an EAD. He takes the EAD and works for this other company on the same or similar job. So he practically left after 1 month.
Yeah.
The only problem I see, not an ideal situation and not a situation I would encourage, but if somebody find themselves in that situation, all what you have to do is wait until you cross the 180 days and then file your supplement J.
Yeah, the supplement J represents the change of your permanent employer, not just, again, you're right, you can use the EAD to work for anybody, whoever you want, and the only requirement for getting a green card is to be in that green card job when a green card's in your hands. So there's no requirement to be with your green card employer anytime. And if you have a nice employer and you might tell them, I don't know what your relationship is with your employer, hey, I want to try something else for a little bit. Is my green card offer still open? Yeah, it is. You can go join that other employer as long as it makes for a more interesting green card case in the end. But
the only problem in that situation is if that person gets a appointment interview.
Yeah, and
within this 150-day window in which he cannot interfile. Okay, now, you can probably try to postpone that interview and trying to cross the 180 days and then show up at the interview on day number 181 with a supplement J in your hand. But a lot of times, based on what I have seen, if you're forced to go to the interview and you don't have a choice, walking with a supplement J, less than 180 days, hand it over, and let them figure it out.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I guarantee you that 90% of the interviewers, with all due respect to them, because they're really not as trained as they should be, probably will not even pick up on the 180
Well,
days.
yeah, you're going to, most of the people who you deal with in the local USCIS field office, they deal with family-based applications, refugees, asylees. Those are the people who get interviewed a whole lot.
The last interview I've been on, you could not stop this guy from approving this case.
I want that officer every time. Sam.
Oh my, I do too. You couldn't stop him. He has decided that this file, before they opened it, he's going to approve it, which is wonderful.
For Sven and cleared, yeah, I've been changing the employer from EB3 to EB2 after interfile, and that's what we're talking about there.
All right, hopefully we've given you some perspective on that.
Yeah, so let's see what this one. Any sign of increasing issuing or more green cards? All these movements are irrelevant if they can't issue more cards. Well, so as we went through the data, anything there, they've turned down the volume, they've closed off the spigot a little bit, and there's that. It's not; those aren't irrelevant. If you create for example, the Relief Act creates a pool of visas to eliminate the backlog, and that means that those folks that the visa backlog will be resolved eventually, even if it takes a couple of years to do it. Where it's bad if those visas if the visas we have right now get wasted away. That's a really bad situation. I'd rather have
Are
more
you
visas.
issuing more green cards?
No.
Second quarter. Forget about the numbers.
We were optimistic on Q1, Sam.
But what do we see in our office?
The same trickle in, honestly. Yeah.
I see, whenever we go to the interview, I see officers, not all the time, most of the time, gung-ho
Yeah.
about approving. But yeah, we're not seeing the pop approvals. We're not seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking to a lot of people about this lately. The average the big processing centers, Nebraska and Texas, I think they say the processing time is somewhere between 10 and a half to 19 months for an I-45 right now. And the people who filed in October 2020, they are in that sweet spot right now. So I'm sincerely hoping that we're going to see all sorts of movement on this front. But Sam, it's worth noting, I don't think we had it in the presentation here, but they increased their backlog in Q1 fiscal year 2022, in terms of they got more cases than they approved, meaning I think they raised the backlog by about 15,000 cases. So they're not really helping themselves here by going that slow. I mean, it's great that they had one quarter where they got 86,000 cases in, but they got to keep up that pace constantly, and you're right, they need more people to do it. And
they're getting paid for it. We'll take one more question, Brian.
Okay, so let's spin. Oh, okay, here we are.
Given that wastage of visas for EB category, how much retrogression can we expect for fiscal year 2023? If I have that visibility, I'll be a billionaire. Maybe you do, Brian.
I do not have that.
My priority date is January 2011. Okay, I-140 approved in EB3. Should I worry about interfiling or refiling?
So priority date January 2011. I mean, that is really deeply in EB3. Yeah. That is a year current. In EB2, that is 2 years current.
The recommendation for interfiling was only for cases in which
where you can't be current. Yeah.
Yeah. So we would not recommend interfiling.
Yeah.
Now not refiling. I would say filing a second adjustment.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think it helps. You're so close.
Yeah, I mean, it seems there's increasing chances that EB2 will retrogress. EB3 seems sort of dug into the mud, but I mean, I don't, you're somebody, SG, I think, I'd say there's a good chance this person will get their green card sometime soon. However, I got a note, Sam, that they don't go, it seems like they should go in order by priority date, but there's no indication that they're doing that. I talked to plenty of people who said, my priority date's from 2011, my friend is from 2012, and my friend has a green card. Why don't I?
Well, because the officer who's handling your friend's using probably the preponderance of the evidence test and moving quicker, and the other one is stuck on stupid RFPs and delaying cases.
It's just somebody stuck in a queue somewhere,
Yes. With that, thank you so much, guys. We'll see you next week.